Hi everyone, it's Laura Aural. Welcome back to my channel. I'm going to do the Q&A, the mini readings today, but I'd like to start, before I actually go into the readings, I would like to just talk a little bit about the Zohran Mamdani win for the mayoral race in New York City. I did predict over a couple of months back, and I think I put it in one of my predictions, the USA Part 2. I predicted that he was going to win, but I also predict that he's going to be ousted before his full term. I feel like he is a controversial figure. He always has been. What I was feeling with him is he's a bit of a wolf in sheep's clothing, if I could actually say. He was all smiles and speaking politely and very tempered and saying all the things and making all the promises. I believe that he was over-promising because there were some things in his policies that he probably are outside his scope of responsibility. But since his win, and his acceptance speech and the energy around that, I think you're going to start to see the real, true Zoran Mamdani come out quite aggressively with his policies. And even though it's almost as if he's won a presidential race. That's how much buzz there is around this win. But even though he's the mayor, and he can't enact all of those promises that he's made, but he has a lot of support. And if the governor of New York and the attorney general, who's currently under investigation, Letitia James, support his policies a lot, and other people, powerful people, where there's a lot of powerful people and powerful money behind him, he will be able to actually implement those promises. And my sense is it's going to be swift. Their objective is to be swift. They haven't quite captured New York yet. They have courted the people for a win, but they haven't quite captured it yet. And he's ready to go toe to toe. Their objective is to seize and capture New York, and for that to be almost like the pilot of replicating that throughout the country. Their objective is to actually get rid of Trump, and he is going to be very emboldened, and he's going to be going toe to toe with Donald Trump, the Trump administration's policies. And they're going to be working very aggressively, very swiftly, and there's going to be a lot of buyer's remorse. People who had supported him had done it because they were either truly ignorant to socialist communist policies and the promises of all of this free stuff has worked on the younger voters, and the people who were supporting it, who were nervous about him, perhaps thought they'd get on his good side, his good graces. And I feel that they're truly going to underestimate how aggressive he's going to be in rolling these things out. He wants to prove that his policies will work, but he's got a lot of people that are supporting him. And now that he's won, there are a lot of fingers in the pie, and they're going to they want to capture it. There's a lot of money in New York, and New York is going to be a real statement to be made if they're able to achieve what they're trying to achieve and have that be the example for communism throughout America. And they really want to act swiftly. And who I see, it's not just AOC and that supporting him. I'm seeing people like Barack Obama and all of that. There's a whole machine behind him that are now wanting to roll this out very quickly. And what will be his downfall is because he's going to go toe to toe. He's that emboldened. he's that empowered that he's going to be quite. It's going to be his undoing. And there's a lot of for months. There's been a lot of behind the scenes that I'm sensing. That I don't know of this. These are my intuitive feelings that the Trump administration have been doing behind the scenes on what I feel that they've been a step ahead of that, and I feel it was better for them to let this play out than to try to stop it. To try to stop and find an excuse to get him out of the race would be almost equivalent to the complaints that he had to fight, to take to court when they tried to keep him off the ballot. They weren't going to do that. They wanted to keep everything above board, and they do have enough evidence to do something. But they have to let this unfold, and they have to let it unfold so they maintain the public support. And at the moment, people are actually buying what Mamdani and the communist left wing are actually selling them. And on top of that, I don't think they realize that they will be looking to enact Sharia law. And you could just see what's happening in London, in England, to really get an example of how they're wanting to capture New York. And I'm just getting that it's going to move very swiftly. But in saying that, I kept on getting, probably for a couple of months now, I kept on getting that there's going to be some kind of event that's going to trigger protests, chaos, what's the word? Rebellion. It's going to trigger a rebellion. And I feel it's around the people who are currently in office or are running for office who are of the Islamic faith. I feel that the ousting, the investigating into them, and the investigations will be around perhaps having dual citizenship, but not having allegiance to the US, having an allegiance to a foreign nation is quite seditious. So where I feel things are going to start going is down that path, and that's going to trigger something. And I feel that Ilhan Omar is in their sights, and I feel Mamdani is in their sights, and I feel the person who I believe is running for mayor along with Ilhan Omar in the state of, I think it's Minnesota, is in their sights. And Rashida Tlaib, I don't know her, Rashida Tlaib, what if that's her name? Because there is an Islamification happening in the US, and it's moving and it's expanding. And once they capture certain key cities, the momentum will go from there. So I feel the investigations into that, which may cause removal from office, may be the trigger. And also, too, it's going to be the year leading into the midterms. And with the shutdowns were a deliberate undermining leading up to this election to cause enough of the Democrats to go out with enough anger and rage that don't really follow accurate reporting and really believe that Trump is Hitler and his administration are trying to basically become an authoritarian state and take over the country. It's they don't realize it's contrary to that. So they're my thoughts on that. They're my feelings on that. And I just felt I needed to start this video before I go into the Q&As. It just happened last night. Yeah. So I feel We'll say some prayers for New York, is what I'm feeling. Yeah. Okay, shall we move on to the questions? Okay. Can you tell us when the next pandemic will be? Where will it originate and how bad is it? So, in relation to a pandemic, I don't actually see a pandemic breaking out. I don't see another COVID. What had happened with COVID, I feel it was planned, but it was also fluke as well, kind of simultaneously. They'd planned, but they seized on an opportunity that presented itself to them. And I feel the opportunity, the pandemic, in essence, I feel was a planned pandemic. But I feel, and that's because it was to get rid of Trump out of office in that final term, and to stop him from winning another term back then. And I feel where the fluke came in, the opportunity for them came in, is Trump introducing warp speed for the vaccinations was something that they could just, because all of them refused to take it, they didn't want to trust it. But when they came into power, they wanted to enforce it. And it was probably the opportunity they needed to take control and get the public used to some of these policies. So I don't see a pandemic like that happening. People are too smart, it's wised up. Too many people have died. There are too many side effects from what had happened from the vaccines. And also, there are governments now who aren't going to allow that to happen. But in terms of, there won't be a pandemic, which is more global, but there will be outbreaks that I see happening within countries, and they will be contained. They will be contained, and I don't see them getting out of hand. Yeah. Okay. Hope that's answered your question. Let's move on. Will Afghanistan be carved up by its neighbours in future? I just got no. Afghanistan won't be removed from the map. There'll always be an Afghanistan. And I actually see them expanding. I do see a union with their neighbouring countries, but I don't see them diminishing. I see them actually collaborating and growing stronger. And I see them working with China. I don't know whether they have rare earth minerals or some kind of mining that's going to happen out there for them, but I do see China's going to have more of a prominent role there. But Afghanistan's probably a country is very hard to capture. So no, I don't see that. I don't see it being carved up, disappearing. I see it becoming stronger and expanding, but in collaboration with somebody or other countries perhaps more powerful than them. Okay, will Ukraine eventually get Crimea back? If so, with force or negotiation? I don't see Crimea going back to the Ukraine. I feel that was done under Obama's administration back in 2014, and Russia annexed it back then. And if anything like that were to happen, it would have happened while the administration was in power. So that almost was an easy annex of Crimea back then. So I don't see that that's on the table for them to get that back at all. Yeah. I don't even feel it's, yeah, there's no discussions around that at all. Or if it's Zelensky's wish, I feel it's more of his righteousness that's wanting it back to make negotiations difficult, wanting all or nothing type of thing, which will make negotiations difficult. But it's not on the table. It's not going to happen, is what I feel, what I'm sensing. I get a bad vibe from Zelenskyy. I think he hides something. Do you see who he truly is behind the curtain? I've had this vibe about Zelenskyy for a while now, probably over a year, to be honest. I started to get a feeling about him. I was very compassionate towards what happened with Ukraine from the very beginning, and a lot of the world were. But I started to see Zelenskyy in another way, and I started to feel what I feel with Zelenskyy is he's actually got himself into a situation he can't get out of, is what I'm truly feeling. And he's really a patsy in all of this, and he will continue to be president while he's useful, and his usefulness has an expiry date. And I see that coming soon, unfortunately. I see he will be assassinated. I see that in the next 12 months or so. I do feel, and I mentioned this in one of my readings, and I also remember mentioning that his wife will live in exile. I feel that he has been captured, and I feel that he's quite gung-ho in pushing for things, but it's very much driven by the objective of trying to deplete Russia and bring Russia down and expand into Russia, is what I feel. And I'm not condoning what Russia's done at all. Absolutely not. It wasn't Ukraine's war, but Ukraine was used in this war. And Zelenskyy was, unfortunately, what I feel, the puppet that was controlled in this war. And I feel he's got himself into a very deep hole with this, that he's got to go for broke. He's just got to follow it through. And there are people who are still controlling it, but he's not getting the results through the Trump administration. Trump's taking control economically, globally. They're still trying to undermine things. But what I also see is Trump is starting to form economic alliances with countries. I predicted many months back that US and Russia is going to form an unlikely alliance, and also too, I'm seeing there's going to be unlikely alliances formed with countries where normally there wouldn't be with the US, because I see that the UK and the European Union and those who are probably the key players in those within those nations are really undermining the West. And while they get along well with Trump, they are actually trying to push an agenda, an authoritarian agenda, global authoritarian agenda, and it's buckling, it's failing. And so Trump and his administration is forming alliances and almost taking power away from the imperial control that the UK and parts of Europe have had throughout the globe economically. So they are losing their power. Zelenskyy and Ukraine, unfortunately, was a pawn, is what I feel. And from what I've learned, But also too, I actually feel that people in the Zelenskyy government may have to face charges of war crimes against their own people, forcing their people into a never-ending war and undermining peace negotiations. So yeah, I do see who he really is, unfortunately, and yeah. Okay, I hope that's answered your question. Hi, Laura. Can you advise which currency is the safest to keep in our cash in? UAE Dirham or Qatari Rial? Any other currency? Thanks. So my first feeling was UAE. I actually feel Qatari and UAE Dirham are both good. I feel Qatari is a little more volatile. Um, yeah, like maybe fluctuating more. But I feel UAE is more stable, is more strong. Just I feel like it's a very wealthy area. Um, Also, too, I feel what you need to keep an eye on is while I feel that their strength go hand in hand with US currency. So if you keep an eye on the US dollar and you see what Trump's doing with tariff and Trump's brought in a lot of money. I think he's been able to bring in over $600 billion to reduce debt. So he's actually doing very well economically outside. He needs to focus more domestically now, because that's going to be their undoing if they don't focus domestically. But they have really made a dent. And so the thing with crypto and all those things, I feel are going to be quite good moving forward. UAE, to me, I feel is the stronger one. And so long as America's doing well, the US currency is doing well, you'll find that the UAE will as well. Now, on that, I think there was another question regarding cryptocurrency called XRP. It's currently worth about $2. My wife thinks it will be worth around $200 to $300 in about 5 years. The company Ripple will somehow be connected to the banking system in the US and around the world, and this will greatly increase the value of XRP. What do you see happening with XRP over the next 5 years? Yeah, I hadn't heard of XRP until you actually brought it up. I'm not overly familiar with cryptocurrencies, to be honest, but I see it's part of something that the Trump administration is working with, along with Bitcoin, or Trump as in the company itself. And I do see that it currently isn't doing very well, but I do actually get a good feeling. I think your wife is very intuitive and you need to start listening to her more. You don't need clarification outside. I do actually feel that this will do well. In terms of will it be worth $200 to $300 in about 5 years? Possibly, possibly a little longer. I feel it will have a burst. In about 3 to 4 years, there's going to be a shift in its value. But to actually get it to that much, I don't know whether it's going to be within 5 years. But within the next 3 to 4 years, there's going to be a burst and it may take off. So I feel long term, it's a good cryptocurrency to invest in. Yeah, more long term. Okay. The question about the Irish government collapsing, if I could just ask whether you've watched the Northern Ireland video that I put up recently and see if because I don't remember all my predictions, to be honest. I don't remember what I've written in there, but it was just my last video, I think. So if you have a look at that, and if that's answered your questions, if not, please feel free to sort of pursue that, and I'll see if I can delve into it deeper. But I don't remember what I'd said in that, so it'd be good to sort of look to see if I've answered your question there, if you could please. Thank you for the opportunity. Do you feel any serious illness for humanity in the coming months? I mentioned in the session, that reading that I did last time with the blindfold, I imagine, that it's possibly identified a place and timing of the event. The illnesses that I saw, and what I'm going to do with that video where I did with the blindfold, I was actually hoping to put together a global predictions, top 10 predictions part 2. And that's going to come up. I'm doing Australia, you'll have that by Friday, and Middle East next week. So it's going to come up after the Middle East, and I'm going to include what came out of that reading in that. So I'll be able to answer those questions a little bit more specifically for you. But here, I'm not actually seeing it as a serious illness, as in a pandemic. I'm seeing it more contained to places where there are problems. I'm also seeing things done in warfare, maybe some biochemicals, if that's what it's called, like the biochemicals for warfare, where they actually release things. That's what I'm seeing that could actually happen in those cases. I'd have to really delve a little bit deeper when I do those predictions, and I'll include and I'll see if I can answer this question a bit further then, and hopefully get a timeline. And the next question leading into the timeline, I know the most difficult part of prophecy is specific timing, but regarding the scenes of the catastrophe described in the video, is it possible to have a rough time frame for them? That will be in that video. So keep an eye out for the top 10 global predictions part 2. And I will be including, hopefully answering in more detail for you then. Are there any more hurricanes coming this year, and what that will hit the USA? I just got nothing before Christmas. There may be something early 2026. I'm just being shown the US map, and I'm getting 3 highlighted spots. So I'm getting southwest, south, and northeast. And I'm getting something in the center. So there are a few events that I'm getting, but it's not going to be before Christmas. I'm actually going to be working on a weather prediction part 3 that I can go into that further. But what I'm sensing here, I'm sensing firstly there's going to be a few things happening. In terms of hurricane, if there is a hurricane event, it's going to be more out at sea, and it's not going to be hitting land if it comes close. But I don't see that happening towards the end of this year, probably earlier next year. I'm getting the word South Florida, but I'm also getting some kind of weather event northeast towards the border of Canada. And I feel that something from the water coming in. That's further into the year. I feel the one down around South Florida, if there's such a thing as South Florida. Is there Florida Keys? I don't know. I don't know Florida that well. I don't know the difference between a monsoon and a hurricane. I should actually look that up. See if I could. So what I was seeing is South Florida is what I was getting, and I was getting a monsoon, more of a monsoon event for South Florida. It's not going to be happening in December. Up north, I'm actually getting more hurricane activity up northeast. That's clarified. So I'm seeing that there's a potential of something happening out at sea, but not really hitting land, and that's what I was actually getting. So if I was to actually looking at the map, I'm going down, I'm getting Florida, South Florida, and I'm getting monsoons happening in South Florida. Up north towards, I'm getting New York, bordering to Canada. I'm getting that there could possibly be some kind of hurricane happening out at sea, not necessarily hitting land. I'm also, but where I'm getting a hurricane, I'm getting something down. It's not. I'm actually getting movement in water down towards Alaska. Um, I'm getting earth tremors because I'm seeing things falling off like ice shelf into the water, and I'm seeing the water moving, and I'm also seeing in the center, in the center, I'm getting multiple tornadoes. Oklahoma, Tennessee, but I'm also getting a fracture because I feel there's going to be an earth tremor through a region that normally doesn't get it, which is seeing some kind of fracture. And that to me is sort of my symbolism. I can see that for earthquake, but I don't see it being large. I see definitely earth tremor, um, but it's in areas that normally you wouldn't report it. Questions around Aquarius, around soul contracts, around aliens, and around autistic children and telepathy. I'm going to do a specific video on that. I'm not going to include it in this one. I'm going to do a specific video, and I that out by this weekend. I'll actually do a specific video for you. And there's, okay, one last question. Kindly do a reading on Canada. Can we expect a federal election around Christmas or the first half of 2026? We desperately need this Liberal government out of power and Pierre to win a majority. Okay, I recently did a Canadian video. I don't actually see an election, a snap election coming up. There'd be no reason for them to allow a snap election to happen before Christmas unless it's going to be some advantage to them. And I don't see that happening, around Christmas time. If there's been talk of it, I feel it's just talk. I feel like there's going to be some challenges in the first half of 2026, maybe the first 6 months of 2026. There's going to be some challenges. When I did my prediction, I didn't see Pierre winning. I had seen him win before, but I don't see him winning. I feel that the next election is going to be, it won't be before 2 years, is what I'm actually sensing. And what I'm sensing a lot with a lot of the countries, the Western countries, Canada, Australia, the UK, Europe, the USA. I feel, as I said earlier on in the beginning, things are on their path, and I feel things have to continue on their path. Then there has to be enough discomfort and unhappiness for people to actually vote for a change. And I feel there are a lot of people who are quite complacent, and bringing in all of these new migrants, particularly from more third world countries or war-torn countries, um, it helps to make the country more comfortable with the idea of health crises, housing crises, economy issues, to make it feel it's just more normal. And that's their way of actually starting to dilute the need to actually push for change. So I feel with Canada, there are too many people that are still complacent with the current government, and there hasn't been enough hurt or discomfort for them to really make a big change. And I feel there's a lot of corruption going on there. But they're not about to put themselves in a position where they can potentially be ousted. But I do see a change in government, but not before 2 years. I feel it's going to be happening state by state type of thing. As movement starts to happen in a state, it will actually start to move through to different states, and it's going to force, that's the only thing that's going to force an early election. If that were the case, they'll be forced to do it. But before that, I don't really understand how your politics works there in Canada. But there'd be no reason for them, unless there's some kind of impasse in government, in Parliament. I don't know. I just don't see that happening so soon. So unfortunately, I feel that there's to, you have to ride that out a little bit, but I really do see change. What are we now, 2025? 2028, I see changes. So I think a lot of the people from around the globe, particularly conservative minded, I think it's actually beyond conservative, Labor, Liberal. It's actually beyond that. It's really what it is now is communism, authoritarianism versus democracy. And it's taking hold, and there is a battle against it. There are wins, and incremental wins are increasing, but there's a lot of undermining happening. And this is where we have to get the message out, the word out, and speak what we see, what we think, what we feel. Well, that's why I feel compelled to do this now. So I hope this answered your question. Perhaps not what you want to hear. But in saying that, I could be wrong. And this is where I would hope that I am wrong, that something could happen for you sooner, and that could happen. I pray for that. So I'd be gladly to be wrong in this instance. Okay, thank you everyone for listening. And I've got Australia coming out by Friday. I'll work on the Middle East next week. I will do a separate Q&A for those 4 questions specifically, because I feel that they deserve a separate video where I can actually speak a bit further into that topic, because they're very nice, deep topics. And until then, thank you. Bye.